This is more Doug DeMuro, and today I am going to talk about the car market. This is a topic that interests me quite a bit. Car prices, what's going up, what's going down, trends for certain models, and based on the emails that I get and views I've gotten on similar videos, it seems to be a topic that interests you quite a bit as well. So today I'm going to talk about some recent sales on cars and bids. I'm going to explain what I think of the sale price and what I think is going to happen to the value of those cars going forward. Okay, so before I get started, let me explain cars and bids. This is my new car auction website for enthusiast cars from the modern era, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and up. If you're looking to sell a cool car from the modern era, please sell it with us. I want Cars and Bids to be the place to go to buy and sell cool modern enthusiast cars. And since launching Cars and Bids, the response has been fantastic. So far, as I film this, we've already sold about 35 cars and more are on the way. So let's talk about a few recent sales. So far, I'm very happy with the results. We've sold about 87% of the cars that have listed on the site have met their reserve and have sold, which is a huge number, way more than I expected. And I think the sellers have been happy with the prices they've gotten. But let's discuss the cars. Let's start with the biggest one, the one that got the most interest, and that would be the McLaren 720S, which we sold earlier this week. So when we started off, the earliest cars, they were all from like my friends. They were the ones we told about the site, got everything into pictures together, all that stuff. Friends, dealerships I work with, that sort of thing. But this 720S just came to us out of the blue. It was someone who offered it to us to sell. And of course, we were really excited to sell a 720S on the site. Now, a car this valuable, obviously, you know, the fear is, do we have enough bidders? Are there going to actually be enough people who are willing to spend this kind of money on a brand new site like ours and kind of take a chance? And the answer was yes, absolutely. The 720S met its reserve and sold for $215,000, which is about $220,000 when you factor in our commission. Now, I'm surprised, but this is actually a market correct price for this car. They've lost a lot of value fast. This one had a $333,000 sticker price just a couple of years ago. And if you go on AutoTrader, you can now see a few examples listed around this figure now in the sort of $215,000 to $225,000 range, just 2 years later. So for this car, I was terrified. Are there going to actually be people willing to buy it? But yes, we had the buyers, we had the bidders, and we delivered a market correct sale price. Obviously, the question then is, well, what happens to the 720S market kind of going forward? And the answer is, it's only gonna get cheaper. These aren't far from going under $200,000, which is just a bargain when you consider the level of performance offered for that money. It's basically 918 Spider performance for like a fifth of the cost and getting cheaper fast. The McLaren 720S is quickly becoming the C8 Corvette of the supercar world, sort of the bargain to end all bargains, even compared to other supercars whose values are dropping. Okay, so next car to discuss, my own station wagon. The very first car we sold was my 2012 Mercedes E63 AMG wagon, which I listed with no reserve as a big show of faith in the site. Obviously, I was pretty nervous that it wouldn't get to a number that was reasonable since it was the first car on the first week. But in the end, it got up to $35,000, what it sold for, which was a very good result. Similar wagons like mine tend to sell in the low $30,000 range, but I think three big factors helped my car go a little bit higher. One, good photos. I cannot stress to sellers how important it is to take good, high quality photos of your car. They will get you more money. I paid a professional photographer to take pictures of my station wagon and it looked really, really nice, and that absolutely helped bring me more money. Two, obviously, another reason it did a little better than I expected, it was my car, so there were a lot of eyes on it. I posted on social media, that sort of thing. And three, another reason it did well, I really think, was no no reserve. So far, I'm really shocked by it, but we're finding that no reserve cars are actually getting more interest and more eyeballs and more excitement than cars with a reserve. It seems kind of counterintuitive, and everybody wants a reserve to make sure their car doesn't sell for like $5. But what we've seen so far is that there's just more interest in no reserve cars because people know that they are selling. Whatever that bid is, that could win it. Whereas a reserve car, you're not really sure if it hits reserve until the end of the auction and you find out if the reserve is met. Everyone is just more excited on a no reserve car, and they've done better than cars with a reserve. Which brings us to the next car, the Hoovy's Garage RollsRoyce Phantom. That also went with no reserve, and it kind of proves my point because it sold for just under $70,000 plus our commission, which puts it around $73,000. Now, given that it was a very early Phantom with higher miles, with some damage reported to Carfax, that is absolutely all the money for that car. I know Hoovy was thrilled to sell the car. He told me the buyer was happy because, frankly, it is a lot of car for the money, but it very much is a market correct price for that Phantom, and I really think the no reserve factor helped there too. Everybody knew it was selling, and it just brings more watchers and it brings more excitement, and people get a little bid happy knowing they might actually end up with this thing. This is also another good example of a car where good pictures really did do a good job to get more money. Hoovy also had a professional photographer take photos, and it looked really good, almost like a Rolls-Royce advertisement. Now, the next question is, where do I see the Phantom market heading? And the answer is, well, down still. But I must say the Phantom market has held stronger than I expected. If you look at a Phantom compared to a Maybach from the same era, depending on the Maybach, they were about the same value, but a Phantom now is double what a Maybach is. And the reason for that is that Rolls-Royce created a truly desirable product. Unlike other Rolls-Royce models, which have all depreciated pretty much to the ground as fast as possible, the Phantom has stayed pretty highly propped up, and it has lost value only slowly in comparison to what you might expect. And so I think the Phantom prices will continue to drop, especially with a new model that came out about a year or two ago that will put pressure on the older Phantoms to keep getting lower, but it's going down at a slower rate than I ever expected, and I think it's because it's a desirable car that looks cool, total change for Rolls-Royce compared to all the old stuff. And I think this Phantom sale shows that. $73,000 for a 55,000+ mile car. You will not get anywhere near that money for a Bentley Arnage, a Maybach, a Rolls-Royce Silver Seraph. It is a good number, and it proves that the Phantom is holding its value better than anybody expected. Okay, next sale I want to discuss, one I was watching very closely, the E39 BMW M5. Cars and Bids sold a 2002 E39 M5 with 160,000 miles last week for $23,600 plus our fee, which is a huge number for one of those with that kind of miles. There was a massive bidding war right at the end, which drove up the price. But it was a fantastic car. The seller had done everything right, maintained it properly with the right people and the right parts, including he also got great photos. But he maintained and repaired the car absolutely beautifully. Now, I had no idea that it would bring $24,000, but it did. And I think that says a lot about the state of the E39 BMW M5 market right now. A few years ago, I made a video predicting that E39 M5s and E46 M3s would shoot up in value, and that has clearly already happened. They've gone up big. Right now, the only way to get a cheap one is if it's in really rough shape, and you'll end up spending a lot to get it in decent condition anyway. So there's really no more cheap E39 M5s out there. Even cars like this with big miles bring big money if they're well kept, because it's just really hard to find a nice one. And this car proves it. A lot of miles, but well kept. And I think that this car now sets a standard for what a higher mileage E39 M5 can bring if you maintain it properly. All right, next sale, going with something Japanese, this 80 series Lexus LX450. I reviewed this car, this exact one, a few months ago, and the owner was selling it, so I thought it would be a good fit for Cars and Bids. Clearly, that was the case, because it sold for $19,700, over $20,000 with our fee, which is a really big number for an 80 series, especially a Lexus, especially with 167,000 miles. But again, this was a really nice one. Long-term, one owner. It had the differential lock, which is what everyone everyone looks for. This was a big number, but for a great car. And again, it sparked a bidding war, quite a bidding war, in fact. The bidders got a little hostile toward each other near the end, which was a little bit of a problem. But that's what happens when a nice 80 series comes up. You're just not going to find one of these. Things get fierce. People bidding on this car know it might be a year before they find another one this nice again. And again, like the E39 M5, mark my words, these are only getting more desirable. And in a few years, this sale will seem fairly normal for one of these. People are going to say, I can't believe you could have had one like that for only $20,000. It seems really high right now, but really these are getting more sought after and harder to find in anything even remotely approaching reasonably good condition. Okay, last major highlight this week was this really nice Audi S4 Avant. This was a 2004 model, so it had the 4.2-liter V8 plus it's Nogaro blue, the most desired color, plus it had a blue interior, plus it's a 6-speed manual. There's only like 24 of these in existence. Wagon manual, blue interior. It sold for $21,500, which is huge money for one of these. An automatic sedan is worth like 10, if that. But this is a really special version of this car, the most special version, in fact, and people showed up for it. And I'm thrilled that it got the result that it did. As for the market on these, there really isn't one specifically, because a regular S4 doesn't bring anywhere near this much money, but most people who are into this type of car know that a Nogaro blue wagon manual blue interior is not a regular S4. This is one of those classic cases where something is worth what someone is willing to pay because that person knows they will never find another one come up like this again. You're just not going to find another blue stick shift wagon. And yes, these cars are known to have some reliability issues and some expensive reliability issues, but with a car this nice and this rare, you can address those issues and still make it make sense for the value of the car. If it was an automatic sedan, it would be like, well, let's just hope it doesn't break. But for a manual Nogaro blue wagon, you can spend the money and get it perfect. And you will be rewarded when you go to sell the car because it's not like another one is going to come up for sale and people will pay more to see that you've kept it at a really high standard. Anyway, moving on to some other quick takes, I want to talk about the Ford Expedition Seascape, which was a 1999 SEMA show car. It was sort of an expedition that was hacked up to make it match a boat for the SEMA show that year. This sold for $4,500. I'm sure the seller is thrilled to get rid of it. It's certainly a conversation piece, and I wish the buyer good luck in doing something fun with it. We didn't sell a manual Chevy SS, hit $33,500, but it just wasn't enough and it didn't meet reserve. These have held their value tremendously well, and we just didn't quite get there. I agree with the seller's decision not to lower his reserve and take this money. I suspect there is still a little bit left if he holds out for the right buyer in the future, and I'm disappointed we couldn't make that happen. And a great result on this 2002 911 Carrera 4S, $31,500, good number for a 996 non-turbo. This car belongs to one of my very best friends, and it's a nice car in a great color with all the important preventative maintenance done. And I know that both the buyer and the seller are happy with how this one went. Prices for good 996s are on the rise, as this one indicates, but in my eyes, it's still a bargain just given the level of performance for the money. All 996s are to me. So that's a look at a couple of weeks of sales in the car market on Cars and Bids and a discussion of kind of where things are trending. I love making videos like this and I love talking about what cars are selling for, what prices are on the rise, sort of some trends we're seeing, whatever, and I will do more of these periodically. And of course, if you want to get in on the action, head over to Cars and Bids, carsandbids.com, where you can sell a cool modern enthusiast car or buy your dream car. There's always a lot of cool stuff happening on Cars and Bids.